Our next question was sent in on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru from Chris O'Mealy. Greetings from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And no, I'm not Amish. I'm curious to know what Jim's thoughts are on Rob Van Dam as both a wrestler and a person.
Oh, God, I've said before, and I know Rob, obviously we've met, but we never spent any significant time around each other. So we've never had any cross words, but I don't really know him as a person. He was not, I was already in Louisville when he came to WWE, right? I was already back down here.
Yeah, because he came in right when ECW went out of business. So what is that, early 2001?
Yeah, so really we've met at some fan fests, and not that often because he hadn't been that active, in recent years. But anyway, nevertheless, as a wrestler, I got to be honest, this is not an evisceration. This is both a compliment and a negative, but at the same time, it mostly comes out positive. I always thought he was the modern day Antonino Rocca. He did shit that nobody else could get away with, that's awkward, that you ain't supposed to be doing it, but he could do it somehow and get away with it, and his flexibility belied his size. For all the people who have tried to work like Rob Van Dam, it's been the worst thing ever in the history of the fucking business because nobody else can do that, but he could do that shit and get away with it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you putting Rocca into the equation is interesting because he was so unique in that time period. No one wrestled like that.
Yeah.
Pfeffer may have tried to have someone wrestle like that with the, the Argentina Zuma.
Yeah, the amazing Zuma, who I actually saw him do jobs on Goulas's TVs in the early 70s when he was on the way out of the business. The guy who had sold out Madison Square Garden in one brief shining moment of Rocca mania and pumpkin mass hypnosis was doing jobs on, Birmingham TV 12 years later. But anyway, I mean, Van Dam, unless you're that flexible and could do those things, everything he did was wrong. He shouldn't have landed from those heights on one fucking leg. Anybody else would have blown their ACLs. His shit was awkward. You didn't know which direction it was coming. But I don't know whether he was stiff or not. I never worked with him. I haven't had the discussion. But the shit looked good in a lot of cases. But sometimes it looked awkward. But it worked for him. The basics of actually wrestling, I never saw him use any. But because Van Dam, he didn't just pick that at random. He kind of looked like the younger Jean-Claude Van Damme, not the one that's been floating in a fucking river, but the younger one in the movies, and doing the martial arts shit and the spin kicks and everything. And the splash was incredible. Looked like you definitely knew it was there. But, he's he got over with it, and that's the example of, as we've talked about so many times, of people trying to imitate Mick Foley, but they only imitated. They weren't. It just doesn't work unless it really works for somebody. It doesn't work. And when people try to imitate those people that can only be unique in themselves, it's the shits. So yes, Van Dam, a very unique case, not a classic, not even a good classic worker, but could do some outrageous shit because of his freaky fucking athleticism.
In a lot of ways, Roddy Piper, I think of, in that he wasn't, a classic worker, but he had his own unique style, and it worked for him, and other people couldn't really do it. But with Roddy Piper, his way of working made perfect sense. Yeah,
and throwing those fast punches with that shoulder thing, and the way he would sell, he looked like he was in a fight, but then he'd kick it in, and as a heel when he'd back up, or as a baby face when he'd come back, it was perfect. It was exactly what any heel or baby face should do, except nobody else should do it like that because it would look goofy or it wouldn't work. But part of that is just your natural body language that you have and your natural charisma that you had. Because at Cincinnati Gardens one night, me and Weasel Dooley went up there. Piper was on the card, and that's the night that he was going down the aisle to the ring. And some guy fucking tackled him because Cincinnati, when Mid-Atlantic started, the people had grown up on the Sheiks territory, but they hadn't in large numbers seen, decent violent wrestling in Cincinnati since the early 70s, right? And this was 1980, 81. So they're seeing the Mid-Atlantic, the Snookas and Pipers and Steamboats, and, they're going fucking crazy. And it was a hot crowd. And they could get hot, right? So Piper's on the way to the ring. And this guy fucking tackled him. And we're in like the fucking 12th row, was as close as we could get, and we're standing up on our chairs trying to see this guy tackle Piper, and Piper spun him around and took him down. And all you could see, remember when you would see Piper as a baby face get on top of a heel, making a comeback and throwing those fast punches right and left down on him? That's exactly what Piper was doing to this motherfucker. Within 10 seconds, he had easily punched him 15 times. And the cops pulled Piper off the fucking fan. Piper goes to the ring to have his match, and they picked the fan up by his feet and his arms and carried him back down the aisle. And he was his head was twitching. So that was, whether he was working or shooting, that's the way it looked like when Piper made his fucking comeback.